Triplets. 16th note triplets are groupings of 6 notes played in the space of 1 quarter note. And for some people, that's not an easy concept to grasp. So what we're going to do is we're going to work 16th note triplet drum fills into our playing. And the way I usually teach my students this, which kind of gets them to get the hang of it fairly quickly, is we start with this drum fill. And let me just say, the reason we start with these fills is because when you're learning and you're doing drum fills, most people start with quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th note drum fills. Something like this. Just take a basic rock pattern. And that's great to, kind of get you going. But some of those are a little basic and you probably wouldn't use them in a lot of your playing. So we're going to look at amping up or just, getting a little bit more technical in terms of drum fills. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going for our drum fill is we're going to play eighth notes. So our first hits are going to be one and on the snare drum in a kind of semi-flam. And I'm not gonna count this out. I'm just gonna play it for you so you can hear it. I'm gonna play that in a beat. And what we have happening is we have, as I said, we have the eighth notes on one and. And we have 4 hits over on our toms. Those 4 hits, which are two hits on tom 2, 2 hits on the floor tom, are actually the first 4 notes of 16th note triplets. So we're leaving 2 out. And usually when I'm teaching this to students, we don't get too technical. We just get them to play. I just get them to play it. And they're usually off and running pretty quickly. In fact, when I'm teaching it, I don't even mention that I'm playing 16th note triplets, that they're learning 16th note triplets, because most of them wouldn't know what that is right off the bat. I tend to show them at first and then kind of extrapolate that information later. So once they get used to that, we get them to speed it up a little bit. The reason for the 2 hits on the eighth notes is because that's going to regulate our speed, because it's the same speed as our hi-hat. So you don't want to do something like this. The hi-hat is there, and those first 2 hits are there to regulate exactly, to get in and out of our fill. If those aren't matching up, then you've got to look at your tempo. So once they understand that fill, I say, okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to do the first part of the fill exactly the same, but the second part is going to still have the eighth notes on our snare drum, but now we're going to play on tom 1, tom 2, and the floor tom, and it's going to sound like this. And it's that important fill. The 2 on each drum, 2 on tom 1, 2 on tom 2, 2 on the floor tom, which really opens the understanding of the 16th note triplets. And it's surprisingly much easier to teach the 16th note triplet pattern when it's spread out over 3 drums than it is if you were doing over 2, which you would go right, left, right, left, right, left. Because a lot of students at first don't like to start things with their left hand. So going right, left, right, left, right, left, that they grasp this almost instantly, and then they're playing. And we can speed it up a little bit. We got a nice fast little fill. And from there they can just take it a little faster. I finally caught that cymbal. Shut it up. Okay. So from there, I mean, they can experiment. Now, generally is when I show them exactly what it looks like when I write it out, or I'll show it to them. I've already written out a notation, and they can see that, boy, it looks difficult. It looks technically difficult because 16th note triplets do look a little scary at first. So then we start subdividing what we're going to do with, once they understand the notion of 6, then I'll get them to play just 6 on each drum. And we'll do it again. And when they go to 6 to each drum, that's when it's very important to to make sure you've got the relationship between your 8th note beat and your 16th note triplets, because you no longer have the 8th notes on the ands to provide you with the tempo of the 8th notes. But generally by that point they kind of get it. Now, what we do from there is we start subdividing our hands and our feet. And we just take it very simply. We say, okay, we're going to play the first 4, just like we did over here. We're going to play them all on the snare drum. And the last 2 are going to be on the bass drum. Just like that. And then we'll say, okay, now you're going to do that. You're going to move to tom 1, tom 2, floor tom. And we get them to try that exercise. And when I say we, I mean I. The problem with that particular fill, especially for people who are just kind of beginning, is this. And they've got the 2 bass drums, and then they're going back to their beat. So they don't usually like doing that 3 bass drums in a row. So what we say is get used to that. And they can play it and practice it as their own exercise. But then I'll give them perhaps a more realistic version of that fill, and it sounds kind of nice as well. So we'll do the snare, tom 1. On tom 2, we're going to go with 2 bass drums. So it's going to sound like this. And then we're going to hit 2 8th notes, maybe in a cymbal crash, which sets us up for our beat, and then we're back in. And as long as they take it slow, I haven't had too many people not get this. And then you just, of course, increase your tempo. And again, faster. From there, we talk about taking it into 30-second note triplets and using doubles instead of singles. And that's something we're going to look at in another video, but I'm just going to give you a quick tally or a quick view of what that looks like. So we're going to start doubles, right, right, left, left, bass drum. We're going to look at that more in depth in the next video.